Merhaban, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a tier list video. It's been a little while since we've done a tier list video, but don't worry, I'm here to teach you the ways. I'm here to show you what is the best base for MMA. Tier list. Let's get right into it. And here we are at the tier list. I've got my tier list ready, my green screen, doobie green screening. Whatever. And let's just get right into it. Let's not waste any time. So first up, we've got American wrestling. Wearing a cowboy hat as well. Excellent. We have American wrestling. American wrestling was a staple of MMA back in the day. It was like you would learn wrestling and boxing and you were set. However, American wrestling is probably the reason why there really aren't any American champions in the UFC right now. So it's going to go into C tier. Next up, we've got Mexican fighting spirit. Now listen, the problem with Mexican fighting spirit is there's an awful lot of andale and not a lot of arriba, if you catch my drift. So we're going to have to put that firmly in D tier. It's not very good. Mexican fighting spirit, probably one of the worst bases for MMA. In fact, we should probably put it further down, preemptively, in the D tier bracket. We should do that preemptively. Next up, we've got Joe Rogan glazing you on his podcast. Now, back in the day, Joe Rogan used to be a godfather, a pioneer, a bastion of information, a beacon. You know, no one knew what grappling was, no one knew what Ju-Jitsu was, but Joe Rogan was there to explain it to us. However, now, if he brings you on his podcast as a fighter, you're probably going to get like most of the way there and probably crumble. So that's probably going to be... I've still got Mexican fighting spirit selected. I'm going to put it in C tier for now. This is all subject to change as we go on. Next up, we've got nepotism. Oh, nepotism's a good one. Now, the thing with nepotism is it's a bit hit and miss. Nepotism is all right. I don't like the nepo fighters, but you know, some of them do okay. Some of them do okay. But a lot of the time, they never go on to have as much success as their previous family member, friend, whoever it may be. They're usually just not as good. So while it's all right, it gets your foot in the door, but we haven't really seen anyone go like all the way to the top with it yet. Not really. So yeah, nepotism, probably going to put it in B tier. I feel like there's potential for nepotism to get you pretty far, but I think no one's really managed to harness the power of nepotism yet. No one's really managed to harness it. But you know, one day soon it might happen. So let's keep our fingers crossed for nepotism. Next up, we've got Indian citizenship. Now let's be honest, Ju-Jitsu is completely legitimate. Is a completely legitimate martial art. Ju-Jitsu, one of the best. However, it is prohibited in the UFC. So we're gonna have to put it down in D tier, because without Ju-Jitsu, all Indian fighters really have is like dexterous hips and like fast kicks. That's it, like some flashy kicks. That's all they really have. So Indian citizenship's probably gonna have to go in D tier. I'm fairly certain. In fact, you know what? It's probably going to go lower than Mexican fighting spirit. I've done Mexican fighting spirit dirty there. I almost did Mexican fighting spirit dirty, but I think Mexican fighting spirit, yeah, is better than Indian citizenship at least. Next up, oh, this is a doozy. You ready for this one? It might be a little bit unclear there. It's wife beating. Wife beating. Actually, a really strong base for MMA. As far as I know, every MMA fighter that beats their wife has gone pretty far. You know, look at John Jones. That's pretty much as far as you can go in MMA, and his base is beating his wife. So we're gonna have to put that into A tier based on John Jones absolutely pioneering a way into MMA through beating your wife. Like actually, he is the golden standard of beating your wife in MMA. No one else got as far as he did by beating their wives. So next up, we've got Toon Force. Toon Force. It's a powerful tool. However, the problem with Toon Force is it kind of backfires. You can't control when you're a toon. You can't control it. That's the problem. Sometimes, sometimes you're like super stretchy or whatever, and sometimes, sometimes you stick your finger in the gun of the barrel, like as depicted, and it just blows up in your face and kills you. So it's a bit hit and miss. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I'm gonna put Toon Force in C tier. I'm comfortable with that. I think Toon Force is probably pretty close to Glaze on JRE, but I think it's probably slightly better. I think Toon Force probably just slightly better than Glaze on JRE on TRT. I'm thinking about Joe Rogan Experience. God damn it. Next up, we have our first S tier. It has to be an S tier, no doubt. Aura. S tier, right? It's got to be an S tier. A lot of fighters using Aura. Alex Pereira, Aura fighter. Khamzat Chimaev uses Aura quite a lot. A lot of Aura is essentially winning the fight before you even get into the octagon. Everyone just the fear, the respect. It's like King Azuli. You step into the room and you make. Is it even King Azuli? I don't even know which one it is. One of those two fucking fools. You step into the room and you're like a king. You gotta make everyone love and respect you. Love and respect you. That's what Aura is right there. That's when everyone instantly is like, oh, who's that guy when you walk in the room? That's these guys. You can get so far. Conor McGregor in his prime was all Aura. All Aura. Remember when he dismantled Jose Aldo in like seconds? That was Aura. He had won that fight before he even stepped out into before he even did his walkout, I should say. He'd won that fight. So Aura, definitely S tier. As I say though, all of these are subject to change because now that I'm looking at it, I don't think it can be the top of S tier because next up is Autism. Autism actually is a strong contender. I'm gonna put Autism ahead of Aura immediately. I was hasty. I was hasty there. I'm sorry, Aura. I was hasty. Got your hopes up for nothing. You're just behind. You're just behind Autism, I think. To be compared to Autism. All right, hear me out. Hear me out. Aura is pretty good, but I gave Alex Pereira as an example, and clearly Aura doesn't make you invincible. If sometimes the aura can go to your head, right? And you start making silly decisions and taking fights you shouldn't. So we're gonna drop Aura down by 1. And this is subject to change. We'll see what we carry on with. We see what else we've got, and then we'll readjust later. Maybe we'll come back to this and do a part 2 and we'll readjust things. We'll have to see how it goes. But for now, I think I'm gonna drop Aura down to A tier. Because I think Autism's pretty powerful, and I think there's a couple more on here looking down the list that are going to be pretty powerful as well. So we'll just crack on. We'll crack on and see where we end up. Next up, we've got, this is a good one also, Fairy. Now, I'm comfortable putting Fairy in A tier. I know it's unlikely. I know you're thinking, what's he talking about? Gene Silver. That's a Fairy right there. Before you call me crazy, he's always barking at people. You're always like doing weird shit, crawling around, whatever he does, thinking he's a dog. That's Fairy right there. That's a good base for MMA. That's how Gene Silver got his way in there. He was chasing a car and wandered into a gym, and he's been doing MMA ever since. Khamzat Chimaev, another example. You see, Aura and Fairy go hand in hand. Aura and Fairy are like different sides of the same coin. That's what that is right there. Because alpha male, Fairy, Aura. They do go hand in hand. To be fair, they do go hand in hand. So I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable putting Aura and being a Fairy on the same level. So Fairies and Aura definitely on the same level. Next up, we've got an absolute banger. We've got homosexuality. Decent base for MMA. There's a lot of transferable skills when it comes to homosexuality in MMA. There's a lot of transferable skills. Holding the guy down, humping his leg. Lots of transferable skills in MMA. It's boring though. It's hard to build a profile. So in terms of fighting, pretty good. pretty good, but we're doing best for MMA, and you've got to be able to cultivate an audience and get some fans. So we're gonna slip it. We're gonna slip it into B tier, quite comfortably in B tier. You can get. It's a good start. It's a good start. It's like a foot in. It's like nepotism. It's a foot in the door. You've got a foot in the door. You can go pretty far. John Jones again, another example of someone who has a base in homosexuality and got so far. That's basically the top of the sport. So just because it's B tier doesn't mean you can't go all the way to the top with it. It's just what's inside you, bro. Just what's inside you. You gotta look. You gotta look inside. Next up, we've got plot armor. Plot armor is pretty strong. I don't think it's A tier strong. I know I hovered over A tier. I don't think it's A tier strong. I'm willing to put plot armor around nepotism and homosexuality because I'm feeling like they're kind of within the same bracket when you think about it. Nepotism is like having someone usher you in, probably when you don't deserve the shot. And then you've got, homosexuality, and you basically have half of the moveset already, memorized from your activities outside of the sport. And then, you got plot armor, and that again, it's similar to nepotism, where it's just kind of like, damn, we're throwing obstacles at this person, but they're just kind of thinking. The only reason I wouldn't put, I think plot armor is probably the best of the lot. I would say plot armor is probably the best of the lot. Probably. So we'll move everything down one, and then we'll put plot armor before those two. I think that's reasonable because plot armor is like the closest to A tier. The only reason plot armor isn't A tier is because as part of the plot, like usually around the third act, is when like it all goes to hell, and like things will look on up at the end of the second act, and then the third act starts, and then it all just goes absolutely tits up. They thought they pulled the heist off, but then the alarm goes off, or they thought they got away, and then the house blows up. That's the third act. You know what I mean? So that's I can't. They do all the working up to it, the top of the world, and then it all comes crashing down, and you have to build back up again before the final confrontation. So while plot armor is good, it does involve like a fall at some point, and so I think that kind of does put a cap on it, and it's kind of like the gatekeeper of A tier, but it's at the top of B tier, if that makes sense. Next up, we've got a pretty good one. This one right here, obesity. A very strong. Look, Shamil Gaziev, absolutely incredible fighter, can't be beaten. Who else have we got? The Taffa Bros? No, they're terrible. But look how marketable they are though. The UFC just keeps propping them up. How do they keep getting on main cards? How do they keep getting on numbered events? And how do they keep getting on main cards? It beats me. You know what I'm saying? Obesity gets you Dana White privilege. That's why it's an S tier. It's easy to say, Look, Daniel Cormier, second best in his time. Second only to the wife-beaten homosexual John Jones. Daniel Cormier, second best only behind John Jones. Obesity is a powerful tool in MMA. Probably a really strong. If you know how to throw a punch, obesity is only making your punches stronger because you're putting more weight behind them when you really think about it. So obesity, S tier. You don't want to tangle with some of those fat guys. You just don't want to do it. Chris Barnett, you don't want to throw hands with Chris Barnett. He'll do a flip and kick you in the head. Obesity is powerful. Next up, we've got inbreeding. Powerful again. Probably more powerful than obesity. Is it more powerful than autism? It's a tough one, It's a tough one. Because it's definitely S tier, but the real question is, where does it go? I think... Is inbreeding higher than autism on the what is a better base for MMA? Inbreeding or autism? I think I'm gonna drop obesity down, and we're gonna have inbreeding. Yeah, we're gonna have inbreeding Yeah. Autism, inbreeding, autism's adaptable. That's the thing. Inbreeding's just like one game plan, and it's just like, I'm just gonna go out there and do this one thing. That's what inbreeding is. But they do this one thing really, really well. Whereas autism is like a deep focus. Like an obsession. And so can inbreeding be. If that's all you've got, then it's MMA is your passion as well. I'm just saying that autism lets you broaden the scope. You want to learn every facet and every aspect. Whereas inbreeding, you just kind of learn what works for you. And that can take you so far, because making yourself your best self is probably how to be the best fighter, but being able to tweak it on the fly as well is probably why autism gets the advantage. So we're going to go autism inbreeding. This is subject to change, okay? This is subject to change. To be fair, looking at the current UFC landscape, we should probably put inbreeding above autism, and then if the fighting nerds end up like winning, like becoming champion. If we get like 2 fighting nerds as champions, then I suppose we could probably swap it around depending on who they beat. Yeah, go on. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do it. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. So we've got inbreeding, autism, then obesity in S tier. That's good for me. I like that. That's good for me. That's good for me. Um, Looking kind of bare down over at D tier. Maybe we'll have to reshuffle. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to Tuna Force. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to American wrestling. Oh, it's okay. It helps people survive long enough to maybe make a difference. Well, maybe we'll reshuffle at the end. Maybe I'll reshuffle and come back at the end to give a final send off. Finally, we have the final base for MMA. Hot balls. The best base for MMA. Hot balls. Tough one to say. I do think it's around A tier and S tier. When your balls get hot, you just kind of want to get it over and done with and get out of there. And I feel like sometimes that leads to a quick knockout, but sometimes that leads you to being quickly knocked out as well. So it's a tough one to say. And then if if it goes longer than the first round and you're going to get gassed because your balls are hot and you're burning up all this extra energy trying to cool them down and fight at the same time. So it is a detriment as well. But the power buff, the power scaling of having hot balls kind of does outweigh the stamina debuff. I think it's going to go in A tier. I feel like it's high A tier. I feel like it's below wife beaten. No, because aura as well. No, yeah, it's higher than aura. Yeah, hot balls is higher than aura, because everyone can perceive aura, and if you aren't scared of it, then like if you're not affected by aura, then it doesn't matter. Aura doesn't matter. But like hot balls isn't like the type of ability, the type of base that affects your opponent like aura does. Aura debuffs your opponent, whereas hot balls buffs you. So we're going to put hot balls in A tier and just above aura. See, this is all, like I said, this is all subject to change. I feel like I'm going to knock down. I feel like I'm going to knock JRE. Yeah, glaze on JRE. I think I'm going to knock it down a level. I do think it's better than Mexican Fighting Spirit. And then those two do go hand in hand as well. Like every time you hear about this guy was great with a Mexican fighter, it's usually on the Joe Rogan podcast. So yeah, we'll go with glaze on JRE, then just being Mexican Fighting Spirit, just being a Mexican fighter, and then Indian citizenship is definitely dead last. Yeah, Indian citizenship definitely dead last. I think that's all of them. I think that's for now anyway. I think that's pretty good. If I'm honest with you, I think that's pretty standard. Maybe I'll have a little reshuffle and come back to it. Maybe I'll reshuffle and come back. Let me just move myself out the way. I've realised I'll put myself down here. Well, that for a tier list right there. All right, we'll do a little sound off, and then I'll see how to rearrange, and then we'll get out of here, because I feel like we've done everything we need to do. Really, I think we've really catalogued like what you need to. If you want to get into MMA, this is what you need to do. Realistically, if you want to get into MMA and you want to know what the best base is, you kind of already need to be inbred. That's kind of circumstantial, that one. So probably like if it's not already happened for you, then it's probably not going to happen. To be honest, you can't just like. I suppose maybe maybe your children could, if you got freaky, but for you personally, unless it's already happened for you, it's not going to happen. We've got autism now. autism as well. Everyone's, they say everyone's on the spectrum. When we've got autism on this list, it's usually, like, again, it's like, if it's a spectrum, the tism we're talking about in the red end of that spectrum, the red end of that scale, you know. And honestly, maybe get struck by lightning if we're trying to achieve this. I'm not a scientist, and I don't recommend you try any of this at home. But maybe getting struck by lightning is a good way to activate tism, to increase your tism. Microwavable foods, maybe. Again, it's one of those ones where unless you can find a way, you know, unless you can find a way to activate some more tism in your brain, you kind of have to have it already. And then we get to see, this one's more attainable: obesity. Now, if we're already quite a large fellow, like quite a tall fella, quite a stocky fella, if we just add a few more pounds and we get into that, if we just add a bit more to that BMI and just get into that we're just teetering on the amber and the red, we're set. Like, we can start right away. We don't need any grappling. We can just, we'll just roll over onto our opponent. We'll just blob people. It's okay, and we'll just kind of get you into a fight right away. That's kind of how it works in the gym. If you're a taller dude who's a bit fat, they're just kind of like, yeah, man, this guy's a champ. Get him in there. This guy's going all the way to heavyweight gold. So realistically, best basis for MMA, unless you're already inbred, probably not an option for you. Maybe drinking things under the sink, getting struck by lightning. I don't think getting hit in the head would help. I think that would kind of hinder. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. If you've done the research and if head trauma helps, vaccines, you could go and try some vaccines. I've heard that's a good way to get it. So realistically, if you want to get into MMA, obesity, that's probably your best bet. Now, if you've got one of the people with a fast metabolism, you could try beating your wife. Heating up your balls is a risky one, but it can get you pretty far. Farming aura is always good. Farming aura, you don't have to be a good fighter if you can just farm some aura. Usually people will just kind of be like, oh, that was a cool moment though. I like that guy, I'll go follow his Instagram. So, you can get pretty far off a bit of aura too. And just because you start, say you are a Mexican fighter and your base is Mexican fighting spirit, that's not to say you couldn't be a champion. Look at Brandon Moreno. He got to a belt with just Mexican fighting spirit. So, if you know how to make it work for you, it doesn't matter that it's D tier. This is all speculative, I suppose, or opinionated, I guess. Because back in the day there was a lot of American wrestlers that were champions, but yeah. So I think I'm happy with where everything's placed. I think maybe plot armor could be swapped around a little bit. Maybe Fairy could be dropped down to B, and plot armor could be moved up to A tier. I just think that if you're required to, as part of plot armor, if you're required to lose at some point, it can't really get past B tier, because with even with the things lower than plot armor, like you still don't have to lose. Like, even with Mexican fighting spirit, like, you'll take a beating, but you still win. Like you're still going to try and win. I'm not saying it's certain, okay? We've seen a lot of Mexicans not win, but you try. Anyway, I'm just digging myself a deeper hole. If you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching. Maybe leave it a like, subscribe for more. Until next time, keep your chin down and keep swinging. Peace and love. I'll see you around.